HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. Hello, beautiful people. Matthew Bivens here, and welcome to another episode of the Having It All podcast. I'm excited for today's episode because I'm bringing you a guest conversation. Now, I did a lot of these when the podcast first rolled out, and I took a little bit of a break in the middle there around the 50 and 60 episode mark. But recently, I've just felt more and more inspired to bring guests onto the show because I'm learning so much from them. I've really adopted this student role, the role of the Padawan, and these men and women are teaching me so many things through who they're being, the way that they are inspiring their tribes and the way that they are influencing the world. And I feel like you can get so much from these conversations. So I call them conversations and not interviews because I'm not really here to just pepper them with questions and, ask question 1 and move on to question 2. What I like to do is present a topic and let things flow organically. And just having these open conversations, we flow down into nooks and crannies and valleys of just really insightful, deep topics. And so today's episode is with a man. His name is Adam Roa, R-O-A. And Adam is a pretty incredible guy. He does a ton of things. But what really pulled at my spirit when I was introduced to Adam was his mastery over poetry. Adam is a spoken word poet, and I watched this video about him delivering one of his poems, and I absolutely loved it. The poem is called "You Are Who You've Been Looking For." And when I watched it, I said, okay, I want this guy to come and bless the Having It All podcast with his experience and his insights. And so Adam and I jumped on a call, and we talked about self-love, and not in an esoteric way either. We talked about self-love and what it really looks like to love yourself in a very grounded and very real way. We also talked about co-creation and this fact that we are creating the reality around us, and we have a choice as to how we want to experience that reality. And we really got into relationships, and this is where I think Adam really shined in the conversation. Just everything he had to say about relationships, romantic relationships, personal relationships, business relationships. And he and his partner, Azria, are really nailing this communication thing when it comes to relationships. And so, they're guiding other people through it as well. And so I wanted to bring this conversation and this topic to you all. I hope you get a lot from this conversation because I know I surely did. And the show notes for this are over at firesidenetwork.com. You can search for the episode with Adam Roa, and I have links to his websites and his social media profiles. The dude is just prolific at delivering content and value to people across his many different channels, from Instagram to YouTube to his podcast called The Deep Dive. So enough chit-chat. Let's get into my conversation with Adam. And because it's my style, I'm dropping you right into the middle of our conversation, right when I'm about to ask Adam to explain the inspiration behind his poem, You Are Who You've Been Looking For. So let's do it. Adam, tell me, where did this concept come from before we really dive in and sort of unpack certain parts of it?
It's a really great question. I think that it's what I believe is that what we're seeing and have been seeing basically throughout all time is ancient wisdom, like some ancient truths to the world and our reality that get repurposed and repackaged, whether that's through the major religions, whether it's Islam or Catholicism, Christianity. Like, those are, I think, speaking to some really deep truths that have been around since the beginning of time, all the way up to now with like Tony Robbins and myself and Kyle Cease and these people who are also saying the same things in different ways, right?
Yeah.
In modern times. And I always heard growing up, like, the importance of self-love, and I had no idea what that even meant. Like, what does that actually mean? And so through my own exploration of love and myself, because I was raised, my father's from the Philippines, and I had the stereotypical, like, stoic, non-emotional Asian father. And so being open emotionally and being willing to be vulnerable and show love, like, I wasn't raised in an environment where I understood what that even meant. In fact, I was raised in an environment where I thought it was weakness to really show love and vulnerability. And so my path of exploration of that has led me down so many roads where I've realized that as I learn to love myself more, I can actually show up with love for others at such a deeper level. And that is what I say in the caption or at the beginning of that video, which is just your capacity to love others is limited only by your capacity to love yourself.
Yeah. Because,
we all are dealing with the same things of being human. We all have judgments. We all have some insecurities. We all have those things. And when we can love ourselves through those, when we can love those parts of ourselves, then when someone shows up in our reality that's reflecting that back to us, we are like, wow, I see myself in you. And that allows me to love you that much more deeply. But when we're in resistance to our own judgment and our own impatience and our own insecurity, when we're in resistance to that, when someone shows up reflecting that back to us, we immediately go into the defensive. We see the parts of ourselves that we don't love reflected back to us, and it makes it that much harder to love that other person.
It's not a coincidence that I'm listening to Tim Ferriss' podcast this morning, and it's a unique episode for his show, and he's talking about the ability to love yourself, and the ability to love other people. And then here we are, and that's the message, the opening message of this awesome video and poem that you've recorded and shared. And dude, I've heard that phrase, and I know the listeners have heard that phrase so many times and in many different ways, because people will put slightly different spins on it. I really want to get down into some of the muck and the weeds on this, and I really want it to take it from just this thing like, your ability to love somebody else is reflective on how you love yourself. Great. It sounds awesome. Right? It sounds great. It's type of conceptually, yeah. It's the type of thing that gets people to applaud for you when you say it on stage, right? But let's get into it a little bit and bring it to some like practical application on how you actually can do that and maybe some examples in your life or my life of how that actually shows up. Because, those concepts, they're big concepts. And how can you argue with that concept? Can't. But then are we saying, I have a daughter, I have a 14-month-old daughter. And am I saying that?
Congratulations.
Thank you. And before I jumped on the phone with you, I was in the other room just making her laugh, because that to me just fills my love tank up, man, just hearing her laugh. And so as a parent, and I hear that, my ability to love others is reflective of my ability to love myself. I can almost create a defensiveness just against that. Like, wait a minute, you're saying that I don't really love my kid, or I don't really love my spouse, or wait a minute, because I can be a little bit overly critical on myself, that is capping the amount of love that I can pour into somebody else. And so I really want to just put a magnifying glass on that, that phrase, that sentiment, before we jump into some other stuff from your video. So what do you?
No, I think that's a really great point, because most people are in a space where they can say, I can love others so much more easily than I can love myself.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that's the default. If you were to take the mode, right, to use old math, like if you were to take the most common, just random person, more than likely they would say, I can love others easier than I can love myself. And we are in a society where we can pour out affection. We can pour out where we're being told, be of service, be of service. And yet, when it comes to loving ourselves, what does that actually look like? What does that actually mean? And for me, loving myself has looked like facing off with my shadows. Loving myself has looked like being willing to dive into the quote unquote darkness of myself, and really being present to where those judgmental thoughts are coming from. Where are, one big thing in my life, for example, right, has been that when I was really young, I had a series of events that occurred that caused me to lose trust in myself, to lose trust in my ability to say, I feel this, trust my intuition, I feel this, and that's my truth. Instead, I would start asking around. I'd be in relationships. I'd say, does this make me a bad person if I don't go to this person's birthday party? I just feel really tired, but what do you think? Or would you read this text message? Does this come across like I'm an asshole? I didn't have the trust in myself, right? And when I didn't have this deep trust in myself, and I didn't even know that I was lacking it, I was going through the world, and when anyone was showing up in my experience, causing me to have to question, have to look at what's my truth, what happens is, because I am uncomfortable in that space, because I'm uncomfortable in my own darkness, my own shadow, my own mistrust of myself, then the normal reaction, what most people will do then, is project their defensiveness, their uncomfortability, their insecurity, project that out to the feedback mechanism that's reflecting it to them. So most of the time that's another human being. And so we get another human being and say, they're causing me to feel this.
Mm-hmm.
They're causing me to feel this. The discomfort I feel, the insecurity that's coming to the surface right now, it's them doing this to me.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard for me to love that person fully, unconditionally, when there's that level of almost blame for my experience happening because of them, right? And once I started really facing off with myself and realizing, wow, this lack of trust that's showing up, this insecurity, all of that is coming from these beliefs that I took on really early in life. And that got reinforced because I believe we're creating our reality, and that the reality around us will reflect our internal belief structures. So it kept getting reinforced to me over and over throughout my life. And I said, yep, totally. I can't trust myself. Well, once I really faced off with that, and I said, wow, you were hurt. You were wounded. You didn't know how to process a certain emotional experience, and you made that mean something about yourself. And you've been living with that for decades.
HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time, and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Well, when I faced off with that and I could have compassion for myself in that, when I could see myself as the wounded inner child instead of being broken, when I could see that and develop that compassion, that also allowed me to get into those same circumstances where someone was causing me to question my beliefs, question and rise my insecurity. And then I would look at that person and say, this isn't this person doing anything to me, right? My experience is my experience. What's happening outside of myself is a neutral result. And therefore, that freedom from any attachment to this other person's impact on my life, that freedom allowed me to see them and hold them in a space of unconditional love as a human being. And it's really important for me to make a differential here, because I said this when Donald Trump got elected and everyone was kind of freaking out.
I saw that video,
yeah. Yeah, I was like, now's the time to put your money where your mouth is, essentially. Like, can you hold unconditional love for Donald Trump just as a human being? Because here's the thing, all those people, and here's another example. I go off on these tangents.
Go.
So stop me at any time. But like when Donald Trump got elected, my Facebook feed, which is normally full of all these people posting motivational memes and videos and saying things like I'm saying right now, of like, it starts with self-love and love. Can you love others unconditionally? Like all that stuff. As soon as Trump got elected, my feed had these same people lashing out and being like, I live in this, how am I surrounded by so many racists? Like, how could you be so ignorant, and like anger and vitriol and just like all of this stuff that was being projected outward. And the thing is that what they were upset about with Donald Trump and his basically willingness to wear his racism and his all of that stuff out on his sleeve and not hide it. Well, that's coming from a fear-based place. That's coming from a fear-based place of, oh, it's the immigrants, it's the Mexicans. We need to build a wall. We need to stop allowing immigrate. Like all of those things are actions coming out of fear, and that can look like anger. Sometimes when we get afraid, we lash out in a defensive way in anger. And Donald Trump's doing it on a very public way. And yet it's reflective of what so many people who are preaching about love also have harbored deep within themselves. And it came out when he got elected.
Yeah. And, you know,
it rose to the surface.
It did, and it's interesting. There's another video on your page that I wanted to jump into later on, but it's about the stress is not an excuse. You know, where you're talking about having that stressful event in your relationship, and your partner. What's her name again?
Azria.
Okay, yeah. She says stress is triggering something that's always within you. So, and you mentioned this a couple of times. The event itself is neutral, right? So somebody being elected is neutral. Somebody saying something to you is neutral. What's happening is it's triggering that thing that's within you. So it's so funny that when this neutral event happens, you know, it's like you said, that's the opportunity for you to walk your talk. You know, it's the opportunity. Those folks that you saw on your feed, my feed was the same way, man. It blew up. The number of people I was actively following dropped dramatically after that event, just because it was like, wow, okay, that's what was in you and was just waiting to come out. And so,
that's the thing. And they'll go ahead.
No, go. You go.
I was just saying, like, that's the thing where they'll say it's everyone's fault for this event happening, and because this event happening, I'm justified in my whatever that I want to spout out.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what's coming out of you, that eruption, was always there. So how grateful can we have gratitude in our hearts for the neutral event that showed up and gave us the opportunity to see that this was in us? Because without the event, we never see it. When everything's going awesome, when everything's great, when we're living a life of abundance, like, oh, it's so easy for me to talk about love and happiness and loving yourself to love others. It's easy when we're in that space. And then when something happens that is challenging, when something happens that may be the exact opposite of what we wanted to happen, can we still hold that same belief, or are all of our doubts, our insecurities, our fears going to rise to the surface because now there's a trigger for them?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately when I say, you know, your capacity to love others is limited only by your capacity to love yourself. What I'm talking about is those parts of ourselves that we haven't faced off with yet, the parts of ourselves that are hiding in the closet. They're hiding in the closet because we're choosing not to look at them. We don't want to look at them. They're uncomfortable. And yet for me, like I put out two videos about this. One literally on the day it was announced that he got elected, talking about the same thing. Like, this is a chance for us to walk the talk. This is a chance for us to show, can we keep love in our hearts? And the reason I feel I was able to have that stance is because I'd already been facing off with all the parts of myself that felt like the world is unfair, all the parts of myself that felt like there's no point in even trying. There's like those parts of myself I've faced off with over and over and over again, and learned to love them and learn to love the events that happened that even created those beliefs. And because of that, say, wow, I can love Donald Trump. I can see why you're saying the things you're saying. I can see why you have the beliefs that you have, and I can love you through that because I've loved myself through that. And I hope that ultimately wraps up like your question about diving into what does that look like. But that's my place. That's where I come from.
Yeah, talk to me about what it has looked like for you, like what it actually looks like when, you know, you're facing off with your darkness, as you say. Like, I get that there's introspection and there's some confrontation of maybe events in your past, things that maybe you did, or maybe regrets that you have, or maybe things that, you know, traumas in your life that you might be looking at. But, you know, talk to me about what those things, what your process actually is for the person out there who says, you know what, I recognize that I have these things that are in my life. I recognize that they are holding me back in certain aspects, holding me back from having the relationships that I want with myself, other people, and life in general. And I want to take action on that, but I don't know what to do. So talk to us a little bit about your process on going through that for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the first step is always awareness. Awareness gives us choice. So a lot of times the person goes to a Tony Robbins event or attends a workshop or listens to this podcast or whatever, and they are given awareness, and awareness gives us choice. What is confusing sometimes is that sometimes people think that the awareness is change, but the awareness is not actually change. If you go to a 3-day yoga retreat and you learn this stuff about yourself, that's great. And then when you return to the world, you're not necessarily changed. You have the awareness, which now gives you the choice to change. And change happens through action. And so for me, the first step is always awareness. So when I'm working with a client, it's about looking at the parts of our lives that are uncomfortable, the parts of our lives that we may want to shift, and the parts of our lives that we love, and recognizing that all of those things are reflecting back to us part of our internal state. So if you see life around you as a reflection of your internal, then you can use the life around you as a way of identifying some of what's going on inside.
I love that.
And so
totally love that.
I look at that and I say, wow, this is what's showing up in my life. This is a pattern. Okay, what does that mean? And through maybe I listen nonstop to podcasts. I watch YouTube videos of people that I respect as mentors. I hire coaches and take workshops and do all of those things. And all of those things give me deeper awareness of myself. And that awareness will give me the choice to take action to shift into more of the person that I want to be, which in turn creates more of the life I want to live.
I dig that. And I want to synthesize some of that down, kind of some action steps. And the first thing that you really hit on was awareness, was seeking and creating that awareness about, what is going on and some of the patterns that you're seeing and your internal state that is then being manifested in what you're experiencing. So having that awareness. And then another thing that you said, which I love, is that change happens with action. So you create that awareness, and then you have that option to take some sort of action. And it's when you take that action, the uplifting your energy, that heals, the action in that direction, then you can start seeing some changes. And another thing that I heard you say was, I use the word environment, and putting yourself in powerful environments and making sure that the information that you're intaking into your body is powerful and healthy and just empowering. And you mentioned podcasts and coaches and books and things like that. And so that's another one of the tasks or the checklist items that I had from your response: awareness, action, and the consuming of powerful resources.
I think that the consuming of powerful resources is what gives you the awareness. I think that everything I do really is about giving people awareness. First of all, my podcast, my videos I put out, the workshops I run, even working with people one-on-one is all about first and foremost giving people the awareness. And then once they have the awareness, they have choice. I can't make the choice for them. Yeah. And so once they have the awareness, they have choice, and they want to take some action steps to change. Now it's about, okay, how do we give this person the tools to do that? How can they be supported in that? And I think it's important to note, to make a note that this is why coaching and mentorship is so important, because while we may be able to listen to a podcast and we may be able to read a book and gain new levels of awareness, there are always things that will exist in our blind spots. There will always be things in our blind spots that just we cannot see by the very nature of our perspective and our lens. We can't see things in our blind spot. And in order to see the things in the blind spot, we need a mirror of some kind. And that's where mentorship is so crucial, in my opinion. And it's why when you look at the best in the world at anything, when you look at the Michael Jordans of the world and the Michael Phelps and whoever, they had coaches.
Yeah.
And the coaches couldn't necessarily execute better than them, but what they could do is they had a perspective that could see the blind spots that Michael Phelps couldn't see or Michael Jordan couldn't see. Michael Jordan, when he's taking the shot, is not able to see like his necessarily his elbow or the bend in his knees or whatever. And like those are the things that are just in the blind spot that aren't necessarily going to come to the surface just because you read a book. And so I think that having valuable mirrors reflecting back to you perspectives that you can't see on your own is invaluable. And that doesn't have to be paid coaching, but it's a huge reason why like the life coaching business has just been like skyrocketing recently, I think, as people are becoming aware of this. But also it could just be like forming a group with people that you really respect and trust and just meeting once or twice a month to discuss things and get different perspectives. And I think that's really, really valuable as well.
Absolutely. I am a huge advocate of coaching and mentorship. And I love how you said, having somebody to help point out your blind spots. And I know for me, my coaches and mentors recently have really helped pick out those blind spots in terms of some of my limiting beliefs and some of those conversations I was having about myself physically that was showing up in my body in the form of different injuries and kind of plaguing ailments and things like that. And in the past, they've really helped me to see my conversation around money and the ability to attract and create money. And that's been just phenomenally eye-opening. And then purely from an ROI perspective, I mean, it's paid itself over and over because, they help me to see that, have that awareness around the money conversation, and then I can go and making some changes on it. And so I'm curious for you, what are one or two blind spots that your coaches and mentors over the years have helped you to see and navigate around or, transmute?
Yeah, I mean, so many. One of the biggest changing points, pivotal moments in my life was hiring my first life coach and starting to uncover things like I had a deep rooted belief that that we are like forged in the fire, right? Forged in the fire. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like these beliefs that at a deep level, what it means is that you're stronger because you struggle. Yeah. Right. You're strong because you struggle. And the truth is that deep down, I believe that we as human beings, as these spiritual beings having a human experience, that we are connected to like an infinite wellspring of strength and courage and capacity to love and all these things. I don't believe that we're limited in that. If we can connect to whatever spiritual belief that you may have listening to this, like God, universe, source, divine, like whatever you want to call it, when we connect to that, I think that our capacity for anything is infinite. And so when I did have the belief that, I'm strong because of my struggle, what ultimately I'm saying is, if I want to be stronger, I'm going to call in more struggle. Yeah. Like they go hand in hand. That's like the path to strength is struggle and what to prove to myself what I can overcome. And man, when like that singular belief was able to start being moved through and processed out of my system, life became so much easier. The amount of traumas and accidents and just things that were happening leading up to eventually my spiritual awakening, the like going all in on this new path, that if I were to look at the before and after of those things, it's not even comparable. Yeah. It's not even close. And I think that that's an example of how these beliefs, really, really deep-rooted beliefs, can be impacting people, and they don't even know that that's the reason. They don't even know that they have that belief, and that might be the reason why they've had the car accident and why they got fired from their job and their relationship's ending. Like that may be the thing, because they feel like it's going to make them stronger on some deep level. Like it's a really complex game, and that's one of the big ones that pops into my head that I've been able to work through.
Oh, that's awesome. It's huge. It's huge. And I like how you said you might just be repeating that pattern and repeating that conversation because of this belief that you're not even aware of. You're not even aware of it, and yet it's working. It's doing its thing under the surface. And I've had a bunch of those types of beliefs. I've had the belief about the only way to create that success is to grind, work 14-hour days and stuff like that. And back when before I was married, I had this belief that it had to do with relationships, and I want to pivot into relationships a little bit. I had this belief that I was not allowed to be happy if she wasn't happy, and that the kicker was our relationship was strong because of that. Our relationship was healthy because I couldn't be happy if she wasn't happy. And dude, I don't know where I picked up that belief, but holy shit, let me tell you the roller coasters of just everything that were the result of that belief. And so I know that you are just this, I don't know, you've said and written some really profound things on relationships, and I've really admired your transparency. Yeah, with when it comes to relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but you put it really nicely. So I want you to share a little bit about the Slinky effect and relationships, and sort of some of the work that you do with folks around that.
Yeah. Well, the Slinky Effect is a company that my partner Azri and I started together. We have now been in a committed relationship. This month actually will be 9 years.
Awesome.
And
Congrats.
so thank you. Yeah, it's a wild ride, romantic relationships, as you know. And the Slinky Effect is a symbol for how we view healthy relationships. And so if you have a Slinky, you have two ends, and that would be the two people in a relationship. And what generally will happen, right, if a Slinky is to move forward, if we are actually going to have the Slinky have some form of momentum through life, then one end of the Slinky will go forward, and that's represented by someone having some sort of experience of growth, right? So maybe you listen to this podcast and that sparks some stuff in your head, and you start thinking about new things. That's literally some growth that you've had. That's a Slinky forward. And now the other person has a conscious choice in the matter. Now, when that Slinky end goes forward, they can be pulled forward by the person they're in relationship with. They can go, wow, that's amazing, and allow that to motivate them into their own growth. And generally what I've seen happen is their own growth then catapults them forward, and maybe in a slightly different way, so that it pulls the other person forward. And one by one, these ends of the Slinky keep tumbling forward in the same direction. And that is the relationship that we have, and that's how we see healthy relationships moving. And that's not just romantic. That's business partnerships, friendships. That's your relationship actually with the universe itself and the universe around you, where you have some massive growth, and then the reality around you is going to shift to reflect that growth that you've had. And once that reality around you shifts, it will surpass, it will provide you the opportunity to continue growing. It will leap past you like a Slinky, and you can now use that to catapult yourself into your next stage of evolution. And if someone doesn't, what often happens is one person can have this growth, and the other person can be threatened by that. The other person can say, that's just not the direction I want to go. The other person could plant their feet in the ground and say, I don't want to change. And that end of the Slinky eventually becomes a ball and chain. And now you just have one end that's dragging the other person through life, and it will eventually either lead to both ends just stopping and there being no further growth in the relationship at all in either individual, or it'll snap and the relationship's over at that point.
I love the visual of the slinky that it gives me, especially like moving up the stairs, because I definitely experienced that with my partnership right now, but it definitely was not always that way, and with previous relationships, there was this sense of avoiding personal growth or being intimidated because I didn't want to, or maybe my partner felt intimidated, and it was just this, it's getting okay being comfortable. Getting okay being comfortable with where I'm at. And so I'm curious for you and the work that you've done with other couples and, in past relationships with yourself, when one person is feeling like either the lead end of the slinky constantly or they want something more for the relationship and they want something more from their partner, what are the types of things that you talk to them about? Because you and I are the types who I believe subscribe to that belief of co-creation and consciousness creates and putting things out there. So I'm curious what you have to say for the people who might have created a partner in their life that is not so down with the growth.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one. I find that the biggest thing that a lot of people are surprised to hear from Azria and myself when we talk about relationships is that we both feel that the individual is more important than the relationship.
Talk about that. I like that.
Yeah, people are like, what? Well, it's because I believe that the individual, through being fully fulfilled, now has the ability to show up fully in the relationship.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And where there's any part of like fear that comes into that is the idea, well, what if what fully fulfills me is like, I want to go like live in an ashram in India for like 3 months. Like, what if that's what I want to do, right? And she doesn't want to do that. Well, yeah, our paths of fulfillment may lead us in different directions. And that's where there can be some level of fear and an understanding that my happiness and her happiness ultimately is more important than anything else, including the longevity of the relationship. Like if it gets to a point where the thing that would make both of us the happiest, where we can live and be excited to wake up every single morning and just love life fully, means not being together, then that's what it means, because the individual is so much more important. And with that being said, we wake up every day with the intention of loving each other fully. We wake up with the intention of spending the rest of our lives together. We live with the intention of raising a family together. Like that is our intention and that is our hope. And there's not a attachment of my own happiness to that result. I am going to live a life of happiness no matter what. That is what I'm committed to. And it is my deepest desire and hope that that looks like the two of us being together for the rest of our lives. And so, did that answer your question?
It did, and it really opened up a whole new avenue, because I want to explore this, because I know that there's some folks out there who just became insanely anxious by what you said. Seriously, this
Totally.
idea
I
that,
know.
yeah, the idea that, listen, as an individual, my individual happiness and fulfillment is what I'm going to seek and create first before the relationship. Because I was there, man. I was in that space where that sort of sentiment would have terrified me and probably would have influenced me to turn off the podcast episode, because I didn't want to hear more.
Hopefully people are still listening.
Yeah. The courageous ones are, because it's an insanely confronting notion.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I think
go
ahead. I just feel like at the end of the day, who are you living this life for? And anytime that we place our happiness outside of ourselves, we are disempowering ourselves for anything. And that's easy to understand when you have people saying things like, oh, when I get money, I'll be happy. Like, we hear that, and we're told all the time that that's not true. And and people still have a resistance to the idea that it's not true, right? Like, when you have a celebrity that says, fame's not going to make you happy, money's not going to make you happy, people go, well, that's easy for you to say.
Yep.
That's easy for you to say because you're famous and you're rich. Like, you have everything that I want. Like, easy for you to say. Well, who else could say it? Like, who else could tell you that other than someone who's gotten it? And yet we still have that resistance to that, because when we stop putting our happiness in the hands of something external, what that means is that it becomes entirely our responsibility. Our happiness now is entirely in our hands, 100%. And that's scary. That's super scary. That's a heavy weight for people to start really accepting for themselves. And I think that that's where we can find people in relationships that they don't want to be in, and huge resistance to leaving those relationships because the idea that they will be single again, the idea that this person who has made them happy is no longer making them happy. Well, what then? Like going on that journey of like, well, what does make me happy? Right? That's super scary. And I get that. And I understand that. And I have a lot of compassion for that. But at the same time, like, I have a client that I'm working with right now who I started working with, and he contacted me because he's in the midst of what may be a divorce. It's not sure which direction it's going to go. And what I said to him, and this is where it's different from like marriage counseling, is I said, listen, I'm not working with you to save your marriage.
Yeah.
That's not the point. The point for me is to work with you to find out what is your joy. What brings you happiness? What does your life look like for you to show up as the highest, most aligned version of yourself every single day? And maybe the relationship you're in was that for a time, and maybe it's run its course where now what you want out of life, you can't get in your current relationship because that's not what she wants. And if that's not what she wants, she will never be able to give you the thing that you most crave currently at this place in your life. And for that reason, I'm telling you, I'm not here to save your marriage, because that might not ultimately be the thing that brings you happiness. I'm here to help you find your happiness. And the evolution of two human beings in a relationship, I think there's nothing more beautiful than when two people continue to evolve in the same direction. where
Yes.
we continue to evolve as individuals. And I read a book a long time ago called The Road Less Traveled, and it has this great symbolism that still sticks with me, which is that relationships are a Venn diagram. And that, for people who remember from school, Venn diagram are those two circles that overlap. And you have the things in one circle that don't touch the other circle, and then you have the things in the middle that both circles share. That's like two individuals entering into a relationship. That shared overlap of this Venn diagram is the relationship. The other parts of it are the individual. And the healthy thing in a relationship is for both of those circles to continue to expand. And as both circles continue to expand, who I am as an individual continues to expand. I get to find out more about myself. I get to find out more about what I love and what makes me happy. And because I'm expanding and she's expanding, the shared part, the relationship, also expands. The depth of what we share as two individuals continues to expand. We get to know more aspects of each other. The relationship expands. And the individual expands. But what often happens is you have one person that continues to grow and expand and swallows that other circle. So now that other circle is just completely engulfed and doesn't even know who he or she is outside of the relationship. Or you have both individuals that literally just expand in different directions. So now there's no more relationship. There's no more overlap. And none of that is wrong. None of that is bad. But if we're not being honest with ourselves with what's actually happening and what's actually being reflected back to us in our relationship, then we don't have the awareness, and therefore we don't have the choice to make the changes that will lead ultimately to our happiness. And people can ask themselves, if you're listening to this right now, you ask yourself, what is more important to you? Being happy or being in your relationship? And being happy to me means looking at parts of yourself that may not be fully happy. That's how we get to happiness, is we go through. The only way out is through. So we go into the parts of ourselves that may be unhappy, that may be unfulfilled. And we ask those questions. Why do I feel this way? And that's going to give us the awareness, like we talked about earlier, and that's going to give us the choice. And then once we have the awareness and we start making the choices for change, the person in that relationship isn't like a stranger. This is someone you love, who you've been in a relationship with for who knows how long. You invite them along on this journey. And hopefully, if it's both your intention, hopefully it leads you in the same direction. But that's not a guarantee. And that's why people get so afraid to go down the personal development path, is because the possibility that they will have to leave behind all the things that they currently are identifying with, their relationship, their job, their family, their friends. Like the idea that the path that might bring them the most happiness looks very different than the one that they're comfortable in. That fear causes people to stay exactly where they are. And that staying exactly where they are, they either develop resentment towards their relationship, their friends, their family, their job, or they just kind of give up. They just kind of like, this is just what it is. And that, to me, I'm more afraid of that than anything. The fear of just complete stagnation and apathy.
Mic drop moment, dude. Yeah. Everything you said, I'm here nodding. Absolutely. And, I like how you mentioned that the personal development work can be terrifying. It absolutely can be. And I know that from my own experience and just from speaking with others and receiving emails and notes from listeners, that just going down that path where you self-examine, where, like you say, you take a look at your shadows, and I mean that it can be insanely hard. It's the hardest work that I've done personally, most challenging, and also the most rewarding.
As often is the case, right?
Yeah. And
it's a terrifying thing, man, to face off with your discomfort and your fear. It is understandably scary because I mean, there's a reason why. Our brains work in a very interesting way where there's something called the backfire effect, which is where when someone questions your beliefs, your brain, the amygdala in your brain, responds the same as if you were being physically threatened. And so what that shows is that we identify our actual like physical safety with our identity, our beliefs, right? The beliefs that we've decided are our identity. And so therefore, the act of personal development, the act of actually going and taking a good hard look at what is our belief, what is the identity that we've associated with, like what are those things, and are those true for us anymore? Like our brain is responding as if we're going into a physically unsafe endeavor. And I think that it takes a lot of courage, and also understanding that nothing you're going to uncover is being implanted by the work. You're only uncovering something that's already there. And so like, if you're worried about, well, what if I find out that I'm not happy in my 15-year marriage? Well, that's because you're already not happy in your 15-year marriage.
Yeah.
That's already the case. It's already there. It's just a matter of whether or not you have awareness of it. So going down the path of personal development and really asking these questions anything you uncover is already there. And that's a very important thing that I try and reinforce with all of my clients, because now it becomes a little less scary, because it's already impacting your life, whether you know it or not. It's impacting your life.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times, I don't know if it's a lot. I think it happens where we know it's impacting our lives and we just want to push it down and we want to try to ignore it. And we think if we can ignore it for another month, another year, things will either shift, or I'll just forget about it, or, it just dissolves. And that just doesn't happen.
No, it only gets harder.
Yeah.
It only gets like the more time that you wait to really start looking at this stuff, it only becomes more difficult, because there's more energy that has been put into the old way. There's only been more time invested in the relationship. There's only been more like people who are in jobs that they really dislike. It's almost like a cliche at this point, right? It's like I work a job that I really hate because I need to pay the bills, and then I get to be myself on the weekends. Like that's like, it's become almost like a cliche where, it's so common to see in movies and things like that. And the question that I always ask is, like, who's forcing that on you? Like, if you were to, and one of the most common things that people will say to me is, oh yeah, but like, I have all these responsibilities, right? Like I have to provide for my family. I have to do this. I have to do that. And just the idea that you have to, that's a phrase that I've eliminated from my vocabulary as much as possible, because it's so disempowering, right? The idea that you have to do anything. What happens if you don't?
Yeah.
Like, what happens if you, Matthew, just walk away from all of the quote unquote responsibilities that you have, right? Now, are you going to feel good about it? No. But what actually happens? Does the world end? Does like life itself cease to exist? Do you die? Does your entire family pass away? Like, what is the thing that happens other than the emotional pain and maybe the guilt you might feel, and like what goes on inside of you and the difficulties that others may have as a result of it? But at the end of the day, you don't have to do anything. And I think that part of this is reminding people that they're empowered. If you're working a job that you hate, it's not because you have to, it's because you choose to. And that's okay. Like, totally fine. If you're choosing to, why are you choosing to? You're choosing to because you love your family so much that you will do anything to provide for them. Great. What a different perspective than I have to work this job because I have these responsibilities. What a more empowering decision to make. I love my family so much, and it gives me joy to provide for them. And that's the true reason that people start a job that they may hate and feel like they have to. But that's underneath it, is that love. And so tapping back into that and empowering themselves through choice, the reason that's scary is because then when you're admitting to yourself that you're choosing every day to go to a job you hate, well, now there's nothing to blame.
Yeah.
You can't blame the responsibility anymore. And taking ownership of that is a really scary thing for most people.
Yeah, absolutely can be. But man, when you do, I've experienced you feel like a superhero when you realize that it's within your hands and your capabilities, and especially just looking at those things that make you uncomfortable, create the fear within you, and continuing to move through them anyway. All of those things collectively, in my experience, have literally, like, I'm a big, comic book nerd, sci-fi nerd, and all of those things have made me feel like I have these superpowers where it's like, you can't touch me, like life circumstances can't faze me. And it's a beautiful thing that I've seen happen in other people in their lives, and I can imagine you've just experienced some just profound transformation in your own life, your own relationships, and in the people you work with. And it's been over an hour now of us just diving in on these topics and
just going. I've just been ranting.
Oh man, like
ranting. I get so passionate about this stuff, man. I can talk about it all day. Seriously.
Oh man, I don't even consider it rants. I feel like they're downloads. It's just universal truths being downloaded through you and just coming out, and you're passing along these ideas and these new paradigms and all these things for myself and everyone listening to chew on. And I'm incredibly grateful because I get an opportunity to learn, and I really enjoy being in that space of learning. And I realize on this conversation, I'm like, man, there's a lot of things I want to now go and dive into deeper, because Adam, you've sparked this curiosity within me, and you've identified some spots within me and my understanding that I think I'm gonna go and explore and get stronger within. And
wow,
I've got all these notes here. I'm like, boy, I checked off 2 of the 10 different things I wanted to get into, but I love it because these tangential conversations are where the gems are. And so I appreciate you. I really do. And as we come to a close here, I would just love for you to be able to drop one more gem on the listeners, some message that they can walk away with and sort of meditate on for a little bit as they turn off this episode. What would that be?
Wow. Yeah, let's see. I mean, the message that I hope is encapsulated in every single thing that I do and every word that I say is a reminder for people that they are seen, they are heard, and they are loved. And I believe that most of the world's ills, if we'll call them that, happen because there are people who aren't feeling that. They aren't feeling that. And I have found in my own life and all the people that I have ever worked with, there is so much love and support around, available, especially in this age of the internet and telephones. Like, there is just so much available to people that most of the time what's really going on is that we have closed ourselves off to the receiving of that love and that support. It's not because it's not there. It's because we are not allowing ourselves to truly receive it, whether that's because we don't feel worthy of it, whether that's because we're scared of what it might mean to start walking that path, or whether we actually legitimately have never even thought about that before. I believe that the ability to open up and allow in the infinite abundance of joy, love, happiness, and support, and that it's available to everyone, is a worthy pursuit. And all of the time and energy that you can allocate to that pursuit will pay massive dividends. And everything I do is aligned with supporting people in that. And so I hope that if anything I said, or a lot of what I said, has resonated with you, I put out so much stuff for free and literally not costing a dime, whether it's podcasts or videos or Facebook or Instagram or any of that. You can find that support, whether it's through me or someone else. And I encourage you to begin that journey if you haven't already. But if you're listening to this, you probably already started. So continue. Well done.
That was beautiful, man. That really was. And please tell the listeners where they can go to connect with you, because you've got a lot of online real estate. So where can they go to learn more about you, connect with you, reach out to you if they have questions, or maybe they want to ask about your coaching services? Where can they go to do that stuff?
Yeah, so adamroa.com, ADAMROA.com is my website. You can find me online on Facebook, primarily is my number one mode, which is you can find me at Adam Roa, and then on Instagram at adam.roa. I'm also on there. And then lastly, my podcast, which is called The Deep Dive with Adam Roa, is freely available, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast, Stitcher, that sort of thing. And yeah, just, stay in contact. It's been amazing. I just toured a show in Australia, and it was amazing to see people in the audience who knew each other from the online tribe that's forming, where they comment on some of my posts and things like that, and they knew each other because of that.
That's
and
wild.
So they're yeah, it's super wild. And so there really is a tribe that's available to you. If you'd like to be a part of it, please, just join up, engage in the conversation.
I know you and Azria are also launching something as well. So tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, we're launching, Azria and I are actually launching at 1 p.m. What time is it? It's 12:11. Yeah, so in an hour, we're getting on a Facebook Live and launching the application process for a group program that we're going to start in January. And so it's going to be limited to 33 people or less. That's specifically for some of the stuff we may have touched on today, but goes way deeper, like the metaphysics and epigenetics and that sort of stuff. We're really going to dive into that. Plant medicine. We're going to bring in ayahuasca shamans as guest speakers so people can really dive into some of the conversations that I don't think are happening as openly in the personal development space. And so we're creating a platform for that, and application process opens in an hour.
And where can they go to learn about that?
That's going to be theslinkyeffect.com/AF18, which stands for Ancient Future 18, AF18.
Yes. And, this is me speaking to you all listening right now. I truly have enjoyed Adam's content. I mean, there's a lot of people out there in the quote unquote, personal development space talking about different things, but Adam has this really amazing ability to blend the science with the stuff that's sometimes a little bit harder to grasp and put our arms around. And you combine with that a real vulnerability and transparency that I personally appreciate. That's something that it's one of my big values is authenticity. And I get that in your content. And so Adam has amazing content. I mean, he puts it out on all these different platforms, YouTube, like he mentioned, his podcasts, over on Instagram. Just go check it out. This dude is just dumping so much free value onto folks. So consume it. And Adam, I am very, very grateful for your time. I know we went over a little bit, but man, we were flowing.
No, it's all good, man. I appreciate you so much and what you're doing. And I look forward to continuing to stay connected, man, because I feel like you have a mastery. I've done a lot of these, right? I not only do I host the podcast, but I'm interviewed for quite a bit, and you have a real mastery of continuing these conversations and going down particular paths that are of the most value for people. So thank you. Appreciate you.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.